All right, welcome back. We're going to talk about the labor market. Uh, if you are one of my students, we talked about this in class. If you are just a general student who came across my lesson on YouTube, I'm excited. Okay, didn't get dressed up today. That doesn't change the lesson. We're going to talk about how many workers that a firm should hire. And notice, at least for AP, we're talking about a perfectly competitive product market, which means all products infinitely are the same price. So we just made the price of the good that we're making just $5. Okay. And then every worker is paid the same wage. Okay. So these are both unrealistic things, but it gives us a way that we can attack the problem. If every product was a different price and every worker got paid differently, it would be next to impossible to study unless you were the accountant for a given firm. Okay, so we're talking about the labor market, which is also known as a factor market. And remember, another term for factors and resources and labor is inputs. So all of those tend to be interchangeable. We're going to talk specifically about workers, and we got a little table here that describes, all the work that each worker does and the impact that they have, and should we hire them or not. All right, so the first worker, here I have total output. That's the total product made by that one worker is 5, which means the marginal product or the change in product by that one worker is 5. Ignore the last 3 columns for now. We're just looking at the first two. With the second worker, the total output of the 2 workers, okay, is 12. So the first worker and the second worker account for 12 products made, which gives us a marginal product of the second worker being 7. So the addition of that second worker created 7 more products. Okay, we'll just say t-shirts for this model. With the third worker, our total output is 18, which means the increase or change, okay, the marginal product, sometimes called the marginal physical product, if you see that. One of the things in taking AP is knowing the different ways that they're going to call things. So marginal product might be called marginal physical product, which is the actual t-shirts that are being made. So that makes 6. The fourth worker increases it by 4 to 22. The fifth worker increases it by 2. You'll notice that as I add workers, the marginal product decreases. There's a general rule in using resources that we get this early period of specialization, and then when marginal product goes down, so after the 7th worker, marginal product goes down, that's the point of diminishing marginal returns. Okay, that doesn't mean we shouldn't hire the 3rd or 4th or 5th worker necessarily. It just means the joy of specialization has worn out, and now we're going to start decreasing with marginal product. All right, we said that the price of each is going to be the same, so that's $5, which takes us to this critically important marginal revenue product. Marginal revenue product is a really long way of saying this is how much each individual worker is worth. Okay, that's the worth of the worker to the company. How do I get it? It's the marginal product of that worker times the price of the good. Okay, so the more expensive a good I make, let's say I'm making refrigerators, well, if I am a worker and I have a marginal product of 2 refrigerators, each refrigerator $1,000, I'm worth $2,000 to the company. If I'm making 2 donuts and each donut is $1, I'm only worth $2. So the price of the good is really important in determining the value of the employee. So here I've got 5 marginal product times 525, 7 times 535, 6 times 530, 4 times 520, 2 times 510, and 1 times 55. Just like marginal product goes up and then goes down, marginal revenue product does the same thing. But this is what's going to determine my value of the employee. I'm going to compare that to the wage, okay? Also known as the marginal factor cost or the marginal resource cost. I apologize in advance for the many different names that this could be. Your best bet is just knowing that this is marginal factor cost and the wage. So I compare these. Well, 25 is more than 20. This employee is bringing in $5 of profit. This employee is bringing in $35, costing $20, bringing in $15 of profit. All of these workers, up until the fourth one, they're worth what they're getting paid. After that, I am not going to hire the fifth and sixth workers because they're costing me more than they're bringing into the company. All right, so I'm going to hire the first 4 workers here. Okay, these 4 workers are bringing in the value. Now, if I lowered the wage to $10, well, then I'm going to bring in 5 workers. Okay, and that would bring in more profit for each of these workers. Let's say the workers go on strike and they demand to be paid $35 an hour or $35. Okay, well, if we increase the wage to $35, I'd really only end up hiring the second worker here. Okay, to get to the second worker, I have to hire the first worker. We might not even have a successful business because we're eliminating all the profits from all the workers. They might shut down. So, so that's why sometimes asking for higher wages can work against the employees. All right, so if I graphically depicted this data, I think sometimes people overcomplicate things in their mind. All right, this wage is the marginal factor cost. All right, and that's just a horizontal line. That wage is going to be the same for all employees. And then this is the marginal revenue product, which is the demand for labor for the firm, in this case, Joe's factory. And the first worker has a marginal revenue product of 25, second worker 35, third worker 30, fourth worker 20. This is the key intersection, obviously, so we're going to hire 4 workers. All right, so where does this wage come from? Well, over here, I have an invisible graph for the labor market, the supply and demand of labor. Remember, this is a perfectly competitive labor market. All employees are getting paid the same. I have supply and demand for labor. That intersection is at $20. So this wage isn't going to change unless the labor market changes. Okay? All right, and we'll take a look at that when I switch to the horizontal graph. We want to know where this data comes from. Remember, this is the key column, marginal revenue product. And that comes from marginal product times the price. Can marginal revenue product change? Yeah, if marginal product increases, better training, more technology, increasing the marginal product of each worker, that would help marginal revenue product. Can the price of the good change? Yeah, greater demand for whatever good is being made could drive up the price to $7 or $8 and make each employee more valuable. Does that change the wage? No. The wage changes in the labor market, but that increases the value that is being brought to the company by these employees. So that can explain why firms advertise, right? If they advertise, it drives up the price of the good, increasing the demand. Now, the employees, if they keep the output the same, they're going to be more valuable. If each good is now worth $10, well, now I can double, okay, the value of each employee and what they're bringing in. Okay, so this is the key column, and it's marginal product times the price. Now, you might see total product here. You might see just output. You might see marginal physical product instead of marginal product. There's an outside chance you'll see value of marginal product for marginal revenue product. Fortunately, that never caught on. We've got enough letters going on already. The price of the good comes not from the labor market, but from the product market for whatever we're making. Okay, it's Taylor Swift t-shirts, and Taylor Swift has a new song coming out. All of a sudden, the price of those goods goes way up. Okay, alrighty. And just by the way, if we do capital goods market, so machines, it's the exact same thing. Instead of workers, I just put machines here. And then instead of wage, I put daily rent for that. Okay? It's everything else works exactly the same. Okay? The marginal product, the price of the good, marginal revenue product of the capital. Instead of demand for labor, this would be demand for capital. And this would be marginal revenue product of capital. Okay, so don't just know the labor market, and then for the capital market, you just change machines to, or workers to machines, and you change the wage to daily rent. Okay, and let me sing a song, Born in the USA, while I switch these tables. Okay. Not switch tables, switch the whiteboards. Okay, get you a little bit closer here. So here is the correlation between the labor market and the firm. So I have Sal's t-shirts here. Well, here, this is the supply and demand of labor in the United States. Okay, so we could just say this is the USA. Okay. And the wage is $20. Okay. Let me make sure I get this all in there. All right. Well, the wage is equal to the marginal factor cost. And for Sal's t-shirts, you know, here's my curve. Here's my point of diminishing marginal returns for my workers. But each of these workers, okay, going up to the 10th worker, is bringing in some money. The marginal revenue product of the first 10 workers, or the first 9, is greater than the marginal factor cost. And then here, again, MRP equals MFC. That is hiring for max profit. Okay? Now, AP will expect you to know this. What they're going to challenge you with is, how is this going to change? So, know the distinction. This is the labor market. So let's say we have the demand for labor in the labor market decreases. Well, if the demand for labor in the labor market decreases, what's going to happen to the wage? The wage is going to go down. What would happen, and this is where they're going to try to get you, what would happen to Sal's t-shirt? Would they hire more workers or fewer workers? Well, your instinct is, well, if demand for labor is decreased, they're going to hire a few workers. No, they're going to hire more workers because the wage has gone down. This comes across here, and now they're hiring, we'll just say maybe an 11th worker. Okay, and it's vice versa for, I gotta sprint and get my eraser. If I have an increase in the demand for labor, they're gonna hire fewer workers because, just edit that out when I coughed. You know, if you work on the radio or something, they have what's called a cough button. So it's not just if you cough, but if you have a noise or if you swear or something like that. Um, so if I have the demand for labor increases in the labor market, that's going to increase the wage, and somewhat paradoxically, Sal is going to hire fewer workers because they become more expensive. Okay, so if the wage changes, it's because of a change in the labor market in the USA. Okay, that's the only thing that's going to change the wage. Okay, remember the wage is the same as marginal factor cost or marginal resource cost for our purposes. Now, the other thing that can happen is this stays the same, which means the wage stays the same, or marginal revenue product can change. How can that change? Well, remember, marginal revenue product equals marginal product times price. Sorry. Just make that P. P is for price. So if either one of these changes, then marginal revenue product will change. So let's say a bunch of employees get discouraged, or their productivity goes down because morale is low and they don't care anymore. They're too secure in their jobs. That would decrease marginal product, which would decrease marginal revenue product. Let the employees become less productive. This whole curve decreases. And we have a new curve like this, and they're going to hire fewer workers. Or another thing that could decrease marginal revenue product is the price of the good goes down. So a lot of times, like, new technology might be really expensive at one point, and then demand goes down for it. If demand goes down, then the price of the good goes down, and marginal revenue product will shift to the left, okay, which would decrease the number of workers that we hire. Okay, the more likely situation is that we could have new technology, better training, more efficient management, leading to an increase in marginal product, which would increase marginal revenue product. Or demand for the good goes up, increasing the price of the good that we're making. The t-shirts become more popular. I put in a new marginal revenue product curve, and notice the wage doesn't change. That's important. AP's favorite answer to these questions is no change. They might say, what's going to happen to the wage if there's an increase in the price of the good being made? The wage stays the same. And they might hire 12 workers now as a result of that. Okay, so a couple of things. Make sure you pay attention to the fact that the only thing that can change the wage is the labor market, okay? And know that the wage is also called the marginal factor cost over here, okay? And they may throw in some things that lead to shifts here. So they might say, let's say there's an increase in the population. Well, that would increase the supply of labor, okay? Or there's a lot of people retire or move out of the country, okay? That would be a decrease in supply of labor, which would change the wage, okay? Those are usually relatively easy. The more dynamic area tends to be over here with the marginal revenue product, and the marginal revenue product is marginal product times price. So if marginal product or price increases, then marginal revenue product increases. This is demand for labor for the firm. This is the demand for labor for the labor market. So those two words, market and firm, are going to be really important as you go through this. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little help. This is one of those things that it tends to be easier if you study it, but the problem is studied later in the semester, things fall through the cracks, people forget what marginal physical product is, they start to panic, and just set up your chart and your table like this, and you should be in a pretty good situation. Okay.